Hey guys, this is Ashley from the South Houston Library, and today I'm going to show you some more ways that you can utilize Microsoft Excel. And in my last video, I showed you how to use if statements, and today I'm going to show you some more formulas using conditional statements. So the first one is called COUNTIF, and this is when you can use COUNTIF when you have a range of cells if you want to count the number of cells that meet a certain criteria. So let's say we had a food drive and different hallways collected cans. And so I want to count the number of cans that were collected from a hallway. So you can start with equal sign because it's a formula, and you can either type it in here or over here in the formula bar. I kind of like to use the formula bar because there's more room. And as you start typing COUNTIF, you'll see that it'll start kind of guessing which formula you're trying to use. So you can click on it or just keep typing it. And then COUNTIF has two parameters. So first you must tell Excel what range you would like it to check for your COUNTIF statement. So I wanted to check B3 to B12, and you can either select B3, click and drag through B3 to B12, or you can just write B3 colon B12, and then comma for my next parameter. And in my next parameter, I'm going to write the criteria. So the criteria for this is that it must start with an A. And so I'm going to put quotation marks and then A, because I wanted to start with an A, and then I'm going to put an asterisk. And an asterisk on Microsoft Excel, it means any number or character. And I'm going to close the quotation marks because it can start with an A, and then it doesn't really matter what comes after. So I put an asterisk, and then you can close the parentheses and click enter, and now you can see that it looked through B3 to B12, and then it looked for it to start with an A, and then it counted those. If you want to look at more wildcards like asterisk, you can always click on F1, and whenever you click on F1, a little help search box should come up, and here you can search wildcards, and it'll give you some other wildcards that you can use on Microsoft Excel whenever you're building formulas or you wanted to check for something. Sometimes those wildcards can be useful. I'm going to close out of this, and then I'm going to do the same for B hallway. So equal sign COUNTIF, and my first one is my range. My range is going to stay the same, so B3 to B12, comma, my criteria. So now I wanted to start with B, so quotation marks, B, asterisk for any number or any character, and then quotation marks, you gotta close them, and then close the parentheses, and click enter, and now it counted the number of cells that start with a B in that range. The next formula that you can use is called SUMIF, and SUMIF, you can use it whenever you have a range of values and you want to add the numbers that meet a certain criteria. So in this case, I want to add the number of cans that were collected from a hallway. So I'm going to start with equal sign SUMIF, and SUMIF, it has three parameters. So first you must select the range that you need Excel to look for. So B3 to B12, that's where Excel will be applying the criteria. And then you of course have to tell Excel what the criteria is. So the criteria will be the same. It has to start with a B, and it doesn't, an A, sorry. And then it doesn't matter what else it has. And then comma, the third parameter is the sum range. So that's a range of values that will be summed if they meet that criteria. So I will actually like C3 to C12 to be summed if they meet the criteria. And then I will close the parentheses and click enter, and now it's summed the number of cans that met the criteria from column B. And then I'll do the same thing for B hallway, equal sign SUMIF, parentheses, the range it needs to apply the criteria to is B3 to B12, comma, the criteria, it must start with a B, close the quotation marks, and then I want it to sum C3 to C12. And then you can close the parentheses and click enter. And as you can see, those formulas are pretty useful whenever you're looking, you want to apply a condition to something, you want to do something with it. You can go to formulas, and under logical you have some other if um, formulas, and you can try them out. And whenever you start writing the formula, it always starts giving you the parameters and what information it needs from you. Okay, and so now I want to move on to macros. And macros is really useful on Excel because it can record the steps that you take to complete a simple or complex task. Once you record the steps, you run the macros to do that task. So that means that you can record the macros to do certain tasks, and then all you have to do later on is call that macros, and it'll do those exact same tasks for you. So the first step is always to record the steps, and it's always a good idea to kind of write down the steps, or go over them in your head, because once you start recording, it'll be recording everything that you do. So to find your macros, you can go here to the View tab, and under the View tab you have this macros, and so you're going to click on Record Macros. And first it asks for the macros name, and you always want to name it something that you'll know what it is in a way, because you might really love macros and have a lot of macros in your workbook, so you want to know what it does. So this one I'm going to name it winner, because it's going to calculate the winners of the food drive. And then it asks you to create a shortcut key, and you can do this. I would advise that you don't use a shortcut key that I already used for something else. Like, I wouldn't use Control C, because then it might get a little confusing. So you can create another if you really use this macros like on a daily basis, you can create a shortcut key, so you can just use those buttons on the keyboard, and then it'll do that macros for you. I won't be doing it for this one, but that's an option. And then it asks you, where do you want to store this macro? So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Do you only want to use it for this workbook, or would you like it to, for example, if you do personal macro workbook, you would do that one if you want it to be available every time you open a new workbook. So maybe if you're doing something for your job and you have to do it for every new workbook that you do, you might want to choose that one. So I'm gonna leave it as this workbook, and then in the description you can write what the macros actually does. And I usually like to write down the steps just in case somebody else uses my workbook, or I send it to somebody, they can know exactly what these macros do. So I'm going to say that this macros, it highlights the top 5 cans collected. Okay, and then you can click OK. So I want to have highlight the top 5 under number of cans in this column. So first I'm going to select this range, and then I'm going to go to home, and I'm going to use conditional formatting for that. So under conditional formatting, I wanted to highlight the top 5, so I'm going to go to top/bottom rules. And then this one says top 10 items, but I want to do top 5, so I'll go to more rules. In here I will do top 5, and as you can see, there's other conditional formatting options that you can use. And I actually wanted to color in the box green, so I'm going to go to format, and there's different things that you can do to conditionally format. I wanted to use a fill for the box, so I'm going to do fill, and I'm going to choose a color green, and then click OK. And now I will click OK, and now it'll conditionally format the top 5. And now that's what I wanted my macros to do, so now I'm going to stop it. And now my macros is saved. So if I go under, it's saved to my workbook because that's what I chose before. So now I'm gonna go to a new sheet. So I know it looks exactly the same as the other spreadsheet, but if you had like maybe a task that you do all the time and you had to apply, let's say, this conditional formatting, you can apply this conditional formatting very easily without having to complete the steps again. So I'm going to go to the View tab, and then there are my macros. And I'm going to go to View Macros. And then there you can see my winner macros that I created before. And then if I click Run, it'll actually apply my macros just by me running it to this new sheet. And so as you can see, macros can be very useful for tasks that you complete all the time, so you don't have to go through all the steps each time. Another thing that you can do with your macros is you can create a button and assign a macros to it. So I'm going to go to sheet 4 for that. And first I'm going to insert a shape. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and you can choose any shape you like. I'll use a rectangle. And I'm going to color it green. And then I'm going to add some text to it. So I'm going to right click and edit text. I'm going to type in winner. Okay. And then, okay, so I created my little shape, my button, and now I can right click on my shape and I can actually assign a macros to it. So I'm going to click Assign Macro, and then you select the macros you want to assign to it. I'm going to click on winner, that's the one we created before, and then I'm going to click OK. So now whenever I click this button, it'll actually do the macros for me. So as you can see, when I clicked on it, it actually highlighted the top 5. So these are some more advanced skills on Microsoft Excel. If there's anything more you'd like to learn, please comment down below or send a message. And thank you for watching.